So today's little project is the shifting on this plow truck that we need for the winter. It's actually my friend's truck, and he's deployed with his guard unit. And it's the end of October right now. He said I could use the truck, but the shifter isn't working well, and so I'm going to see if we can get that fixed. This is a F-350 V10 Lariat Super Duty big truck. So what's going on is the shift lever here is really hard to shift. If I can find the keys. All right, so when I turn it into, well, do I have it? So I've turned it one click, and now I'm going to try and shift it. Can we see the shifter? So when I try and pull the shift lever here, it is just really hard to shift between the various gears. So watching another video, it's kind of been tracked down to this called the neutral safety switch, or shifter position sensor, not too hard to change, but really difficult to get off because the shaft that this comes out on gets rusted on there. One thing to notice on here, hopefully you'll be able to see this, there's a label for neutral where this white ring has to be in that position. So when you put it on, you want to put your gear shifter in neutral, slip this thing on, and then bolt it on. But we'll see that down below, and I'll show you a way you can test that it's this. So let's head under the truck and see what we can find. My part number is an NS 126, and I think this is a 2000 model truck. All right, let's go under and see what we see. So the sensor is located more or less right under the driver door, a little bit more towards the front of the truck on the side of the transmission. So getting a little light here. There it is. And you can see there's two bolts holding it on the top right and left, and then the shaft comes through the middle of that yellow part. It is really rusted, so it isn't going to come off too easy. That's the most challenging part of this, I think. But looking above, we can see where the shift cable comes down here. And so the first test that I did to make sure that this wasn't maybe a bad shift cable or gunked up, is I removed this clip completely. You kind of have to use a screwdriver. There's a little clip on the back here. You kind of just push it up carefully, take it off completely. And before I did take it off, I marked where this was located with a marker. There's two little marks on there that I made. I wanted to get it back in the same position because you don't want to end up in first gear when you're supposed to be in neutral, that kind of thing. So when I took that clip off and just freed this up, I went up and moved the shift lever, and it just moved completely freely. So the shift cable was working fine. I think the second test we can do is take these bolts out and And then we should be able to rotate this. And if it rotates really stiff, because this little plastic bushing here is supposed to rotate inside there, and on the new part I can rotate that with my fingers, but on this one it doesn't hardly rotate at all. So, but let's see if we can do that test next. Up here are 5/16 that are holding this on, so hopefully these will come out okay. This is my first try. Oh, no. Yep, there she goes. Good. I don't want to break anything off since it's not my truck. When I first came down here, there was a little piece of rubber, like part of a gasket that may have been behind there. I think, you know, the gasket maybe just dried out. And that's what was making it really stiff. But what I don't want is to be plowing in January. And you know how that goes. It's a blizzard or something and you got a foot of snow and all of a sudden this thing breaks because it just freezes up, and then you're having to fix it on the ground underneath the truck in a snowbank. Or worse yet, you know, pay to somebody to tow it and pay somebody $300 to put in a $35 part, which I got on Amazon. Okay. Get the electrical connector off here. There, that's off. So now, with this off, transmission shouldn't move because this is still clipped, so I can move this, and it's moving, but it's a little stiff, more stiff than the new one, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm just turning that with my here's the new one here, and I can kind of turn that pretty easy back to the neutral position. So, you know, if all this rust wasn't on this shaft, that thing should pop right off, but there is rust on it. And so what another guy's video, and I'll link to that so you can see what he did. He didn't show removing it, but he showed it after it was off, and he basically split this housing and the bushing and then cleaned it up after he got it off. So so basically I think he, you know, cut the plastic here, here, or here, and then he split the white ring and just kind of unwrapped it instead of sliding it off. So I brought some yeah, here's another piece of this like rubber bushing. I'm not sure where that came from, if it came from inside there, but I think it was getting pinched between the black plastic and the white ring, and that's what was making it so stiff. But now that this is gone, I bet this thing isn't waterproof anymore, and you know, it's just gonna fail. So it's time to get it replaced. So to get it off, that's going to be the fun part. It doesn't rotate all the way. I brought some chisels, a couple different chisels and a pinpoint chisel. I bought a mini hacksaw here, and but the thing I think I'm going to try first is an oscillating motorized saw. So I'm going to grab that. So let's see what we can do with that. If we can fit the tool up in here. maybe pliers to get in there and wedge, make that a little bigger. Screwdriver maybe. So hopefully I got the black shell split here enough to see if I can get up in there and do a little more damage to that thing. This is a painter's tool, one of my favorites. All right, let's try something like a pliers now. Well, there it is. It's off. And here's a piece, so you can see here is one of these rings that just somehow slipped out of the housing. So the next thing we want to do is clean up that shaft so we can slide the new one on. And if we look at our new part here, not quite sure if you can see it, but there's some little plastic ridges right here that have to slide into a groove on the shaft. So that groove is going to have to be clean enough for this to slide in. I'm still in park up there, so I think I am at least. I don't know. We'll check that before we slide it on. But let's go and see what we can do to get that cleaned up now. I think we'll just start with the painter tool. Seems like there's a little bit of a flat spot on the end of the shaft here, so you could put a crescent wrench on there and change the position of the transmission for testing or something like that. So I'm going to try and clean out this bottom groove right here. And there is a groove on the top also. I brought some emery cloth, plumbing emery cloth. I'm going to go get that. So this is just emery cloth that comes in a roll. You can get it in the plumbing section at the hardware store. Well, I'm going to try a fit now. I've got some got some anti-seize lube here. Permatex. This is the silver kind. There's also a copper infused one. I'm just going to put a little bit of this on the shaft right now as a lubricant and maybe as a rust corrosion inhibitor. Shouldn't hurt the plastic, I don't think. So neutral doesn't matter until I put the bolts in. So right now I'm just going to try and line up the little tabs on the bottom and the top and see if it'll slip on. A little bit tight yet. I'm gonna do some more cleaning. All right, we'll try again. I think this is the correct way. Yeah, I think it's gonna go. And even so, I'm going to clean up a little more. Just trying to get at that top groove a little bit more. Make sure there's no rust in there. I guess I could get a little mirror and try and look up there, but I'm just going to keep going at it a little bit here. Okay. Now, to put this on, like I said before, we want to make sure that there's a little line on the white circle and a line at the top here that says neutral, and I want to bolt that to the transmission when the transmission gear shifter up on top is also in neutral. So I'm going to go do that. That's reverse. That's neutral. Now, I should also have my wheels blocked when it's in neutral, but there's this really heavy plow on the front of this truck, and I'm on a flat floor, so I think I'm okay. I'm not going to get rolled on. If I do, well, it'll be a video on what not to do. Okay, so let's try this again. A little bit of this anti-seize goo on the shaft. Maybe I'll just put a little inside the plastic ring here too, small amount, not much. More to help it slide on, I guess. And so the top is in neutral, and I don't want to turn the shaft. Obviously, the bolt things go up like before. I can see the bottom ring here. And there it is. And I'm going to make sure that the white shaft is now, you know, in the groove, so that's not moving anymore. When I'm moving the housing here, it's moving. Let's see if I can switch this a little bit here. Can we see it? So as I move the housing now, I'm moving the black housing away from the neutral line. And so that's lined up now. All right. Now I'm going to take the bolts that were there, and I'm going to put this the anti-seize stuff on here. Now, like if your truck won't, so now what we need to go test is that the truck, so I'm going to make sure my line is still lined up as I snug this up. But if the truck won't, the truck is supposed to start when it's in neutral, maybe when the brake is on, and when it's in park. And if it, you know, if there's problems with that, then this, you might have to rotate this part just a little bit. Well, there, it's not tight yet, so I gotta make sure I got my line, neutral line up again. I do. Okay. You might have to adjust the position of the switch slightly. But if the gears aren't, you know, if somehow it's not going in, you don't feel like the shifter, like when you put it in drive, it's actually in drive, or it would slip out of drive, or I don't know much about that. But then that would be, there's an adjustment on this cable up here above, and that's what adjusts the lever, shift lever, relative to what gear it's in inside the transmission. All right. Getting snug, checking that neutral line, it's still good. So snug up this one now. Okay, exactly 23.5 foot-pounds. Okay, and then the electrical connector. Hopefully that goes on. I should have checked it first. Alright, so I just found this is like a clear silicone grease that you find in the plumbing section. And I'm just going to put a small amount of that on the housing here to try and, there's a gasket up inside there, and I think it has to actually fit down inside here a little bit. I'm hoping that this little bit of grease will help it slip down in there. I just don't think it was seating all the way when I'm pressing it on. Now we can jump up in the truck and bolts are on, bolts are tight. See if we can start it. All right, it's in neutral right now, so I should be able just to start it up. That's good. Put it in park. So I put it in park now. And see if it starts in park. It does. Oh, let's see. Yeah, you can't put it in reverse without... All right, turn the key one notch. I'm going to put it in reverse and it should not start. Doesn't. Try it in drive. It doesn't. All right, I'm going to clean up and then I think I'll take it for a little test drive. Make sure that it goes in. It shifts what I would consider normal now. No, you know, before we were just having to hang on that shifter and it felt like you were going to break something. So, all right. Be back in a little bit. All right, as a little bonus, since I had this off, I like to see what's inside things. I drilled out the rivets that were holding this piece together, and we'll just take it apart and see what's in there, see if water was getting inside of this or not. So first reveal here. So basically a little lever that's going along some kind of switch thing, and let's see if that comes out at all. So there we go. A lot of grease. There's a set of contacts here, which seem to be the backplane connectors that are on the housing, and then we have a wiper. You know, this was the part that rotated. So something on the front plane and then wipers on the back plane. Well, there's a little green corrosion right here. So I don't know if that contact was starting to get bad or not. A lot of grease, not that big a deal. And there's a little bit of corrosion up on there too. When we look at the end of the housing here, whoops, not that one, this one, you can see there was some corrosion on some of those pins right there. So not the worst I've seen looking inside of something before, but so just a wiper tells everything what position the transmission is in. So there it is. Now, how did this fail? Well, you can see on this white part that was rotating inside the black housing, there was two O-rings. This one was still in there, but when I first looked under the truck, part of this O-ring, it actually just somehow you can see this O-ring is just, I don't know if you can see with the GoPro here, but this O-ring is all dried out. It's nothing anymore. And I think that was the one that was on the outside to the rusty side of the shaft. So that O-ring probably was folding up and binding. So when this was trying to rotate, it couldn't, and that's where all the friction was coming from. So pretty easy fix, really. Just replace it, and there she is. Okay.